Well, good morning. It's good to be with you. Today, in civilized nations around the world, there are no broadly accepted or practiced ethical guidelines for cybersecurity professionals. I'm going to address why civilized nations around the world desperately need a set of ethical guidelines and why we need people of ethics and character to implement them. Today, it is widely accepted that cybersecurity is now the economic and security threat of our age. For decades, the threat of nuclear war was the greatest threat of our time. But after dozens and dozens of meetings in Washington, D.C., over the last half dozen years with government officials and intelligence officials, I think we can reasonably make the case that cybersecurity has now emerged as both the economic and security threat of our age. Cybersecurity is constantly in the headlines. Major breaches and ransomware attacks are commonplace. Cybercrime was estimated in 2001 to be a $6 trillion cost globally. If it were its own nation, cybercrime would be the third largest economy in the world after the United States and China. Cybersecurity is shaping the budgets of businesses and governments all over the world. Cybersecurity will continue to grow as a criminal enterprise, and the estimates today are that it will grow about 15% per year over the next years. If that's true, that $6 trillion price tag will grow to over $10 trillion. There's also the problem of the workforce gap. Today, according to the US government, there are over 600,000 unfilled jobs in cybersecurity in the United States. If that trend continues on a global level by 2025, the estimates is that there will be 3.5 million unfilled jobs in cybersecurity. Clearly, the bad guys are ahead of the good guys. But there's a further problem, and that is the education of cybersecurity professionals themselves. You see, every 2-year and 4-year college in the United States that teaches cybersecurity teaches offensive hacking. That means that our university system is teaching our students how to steal your stuff. We do that at Montreat College, and the reason is because if you're going to teach good defensive cybersecurity, you have to teach the mind of the offensive hacker and their methods. And so, trust is fundamental to the cybersecurity profession. However, with the exception of faith-based colleges, American higher education stopped teaching the moral compass 5 or 6 decades ago. When you combine that with the fact that there are no broadly accepted or practiced ethical guidelines in cybersecurity, well, you can see we have a problem. Now let's do a quick survey of the history of the civilized world. Over the past 2,500 years, civilized nations have created ethical boundaries for our most important cultural engagements. Think about medicine. We have the Hippocratic Oath, which was developed between the 3rd and 5th centuries BC. Law has a set of, is guided by a code of ethics. Even warfare has as its core, over 2 millennia, just war theory. This can be traced back to the 1st century BC, which coalesced then further during the Middle Ages and has been further developed ever since. So when we hear today about international law and the Geneva Conventions, these are an outgrowth of what happened 2,100 years ago. Even the American founding, the United States was built on an understanding of transcendence and the need for virtue, character, and ethics to be at the core of the American experiment. While these codes, oaths, and laws have been imperfect, and in some cases terribly imperfect, they have nonetheless provided invaluable boundaries for human behavior. It's time for cybersecurity to have accepted and practiced boundaries on both offense and defense. Montreat College, where I work, located in Western North Carolina, seeks to make a contribution to this space. For nearly a decade, Montreat College has taught cybersecurity education, and we're emerging as a national leader in that space. It's now our second largest major, and we've been invited to help frame the future of cybersecurity higher education for the nation. After 106 years as a college, we also remain unapologetically faith-based, rooted in historic biblical orthodoxy. Because of this, we overtly teach to moral compass, now rare, as I mentioned, in American higher education. The United States government, to their credit, recognizes both the daunting problems of cybersecurity and Montreat College's unique ability to contribute. And as such, they have asked us to write a book on cybersecurity ethics. We're writing for two audiences. The first are the students at the 450 or so Centers for Academic Excellence as designated by the National Security Agency and the Department of Homeland Security. We consider that target audience, students in higher education and practitioners already in the field, as one target audience. The second target audience is the C-suite, the CEOs, CFOs, boards of directors who generally know very, very little about cybersecurity and even less about their own responsibility and liability. Our goal is a bold one, and that is to create the Hippocratic Oath for cybersecurity. Although still in process, we are focusing on a set of ethical core principles that include some things that we talked about yesterday, that cybersecurity is principally a human business. It's humanity over technology. It's man over machine. Another core principle is own your own mistakes. This is a direct translation of the timeless principles of humility and confession. Don't be a lone wolf. Again, translated from timeless core ethical principles that we don't have all the answers. And so when you're encountering a complex problem, you ought to collaborate with other people and seek wisdom. And so that humility and wisdom combined would lead you to say, I shouldn't be a lone wolf. This work is a translation, and we're going to translate it into case studies. So my co-author is a 25-year veteran, one of the leading cybersecurity professionals in the country, and he's been part of solving the problems of the largest commercial breaches in American history. We will map these core ethical principles to the case studies, providing what we hope to be a decision-making pathway for all cybersecurity professionals in the future. So what's our core value proposition? Well, it's actually not complicated, and here it is. The problem of cybersecurity is not principally a technical problem. The problem of cybersecurity is principally a human problem. And therefore, the solution to cybersecurity is not principally a technical solution. It is principally a human solution. If you do not have the right people of ethics and character as your cyber leaders and frontline professionals, your technology doesn't matter very much. Part of our task in these days is to translate timeless truth into what my good friend Sandy Sugar calls a sacred anthropology. If you're wondering whether this is even possible in our day and age, consider the following. The codes and oaths I referenced earlier were developed in the Roman Empire and in the Middle Ages. And if they could do it then, we can certainly do it now. Timeless truth can and must be translated to address the greatest challenges of our time. Cybersecurity is one of those.